at 6 and first on KLTV. There's an effort underway to remove the Smith County District Clerk from office. A court filing accuses District Clerk Penny Clarkston of not only ignoring her official duties, but also violating the Texas Penal Code. Tonight, a look at the allegations and the response from the District Clerk.
The petition to remove District Clerk Penny Clarkston was filed by Joanne Fleming, Executive Director of Grassroots America We the People, a constitutional conservative political action committee. In the 73-page petition, Fleming, through her attorney, aims to remove Clarkston from office for a number of reasons. Writing throughout the majority of Clarkston's terms of office, she has neglected her duties as District Clerk of Smith County. Among the allegations, instances in which Clarkston has failed to pay jurors as required by law.
If you will step right down to that table, they will get you paid.
An issue brought up in an October meeting of Smith County judges, much like this one that happened earlier this week. In the October meeting, Judge Austin Reeve Jackson said jurors were being turned away at the courthouse doors without payment for their service, saying the district clerk has sent her employees down to the parking garage to stop jurors before they even got out of their cars, to tell them to go home. Later in the meeting, Jackson detailed an interaction in which a deputy clerk was escorting a woman out of the central jury room. Clarkston told the judge she was dismissing the woman who was disabled. Jackson asked Clarkston, "Did you tell her she had the right to be paid?" He said Clarkston responded with, "She didn't want to be paid." Jackson then asked the woman if that was correct, and the woman replied, "Yes, I did. They told me I couldn't be paid." The petition also accuses Clarkston of not issuing warrants in a timely manner and even issuing them without proper authority, resulting in illegal arrest, while also alleging Clarkston broke the law by falsifying and destroying filed documents. We reached out to Clarkston by phone, who told us she felt this was not only an attack on her, but also her office, saying she served 5 years working 15 to 20-hour days. She went on to say she will continue to work for the citizens of Smith County.
An out-of-county judge has been appointed to preside over this case. The petition is requesting Clarkston be suspended without pay pending the outcome of a jury trial. Now, we reached out to Joanne Fleming and her attorney. Beyond the court filing, they had no comment.